This is the Swarm Unplugged podcast, where we introduce you to the best and the brightest in the crypto universe. With thousands of ideas to learn from people in all areas of crypto, we want to explore as many as possible. I'm Christopher Knight, so let's get started.
Well, welcome to the Swarm Unplugged. Got a fantastic episode today. We have a sincerely interesting, unique, and very well-versed guest today. As you all know, on the lead-in, we're about to announce Dr. Toeconomian, who we all know very well as Dr. T. I am the host today, as Tony K has some legal issues that he's working through, not against him, but for him. And he apologizes for not being here. But as they say, the show must go on. So without further ado, I would like everybody to give a giant round of applause for our guest, Dr. Toeconomian. Hey, doctor, how are you? Look at that. He is amazing. We've got people standing up and just doing the whole 9 yards of applause and everything. So welcome to the Swarm Unplugged. Appreciate the time. And let's get started. Who is the real Dr. T?
Well, Dr. T is a rare breed of Renaissance millionaire. Sorry, I had to go there. It's a reference to the Steve Martin movie. I'm a fairly sarcastic, dryly humored person, so my typical persona is very straight-laced, and you may not expect the hilarity behind some of the things that I say, but I'm here because I'm recently into the crypto world in the last 2 years, and I've been doing a lot of projects, and hopefully some of the things I'm working on and have discovered during that time may be of interest to you folks.
Well, I know that it's of a tremendous interest to me, not just the things that you are doing and involved in the Social Bees University and the Social DAO, but after chatting with you, you're just an amazing man as far as skill sets, as far as interests, hobbies. Tell us a little bit about Dr. T and his family life.
Sure. So I'm Californian. San Diego is where I was born. I grew up there, and I left town at the age of 18, burning skid marks in the driveway to get out on my own. I ended up going to study engineering at UC Irvine. Kind of drifted around through a few jobs until I ended up in the aerospace manufacturing business. So I'm currently an aerospace engineer. I have been for goodness knows how many decades. I've been married. We just celebrated our 28th anniversary. Yes, I had to pause to think about it, even though it was only a few days ago. 28 years. I've got 2 darling daughters and 2 darling grandchildren that we just spent the week with out there in Catalina Island off California. And I'm nearing the point where I would like to retire from aerospace engineering and move into supporting myself in the crypto business full time. That's kind of my goal at the moment.
Oh, amazing. 28 years. That's a milestone within itself these days, but congratulations to you and your marvelous wife. And the fact that you've got 2 kids and 2 grandkids sort of mimics me. I've got 2 grown and 2 grandkids. One who's going on 15. She's actually 15, going on 21. She's a trip. And I've got a 4-year-old that is absolutely amazing. I mean, I had a conversation. These conversations I have with him, he talks about batteries. He knows the size of every battery, what they do. the names of them, the voltages. He can actually say, well, the AAA is this big and the AA is a little bigger, and don't forget about the square one, Gramps. So,
Wow.
I mean, some of the things that just comes out of his mouth is quite amazing.
Right.
But in your youth, I understand that you've acquired 10 varsity letters. I mean, my God, tell us a little bit about that. 10 letters has got to be amazing.
Yeah. So in my youth, I played baseball, and when I started high school, I wasn't quite sure what to pursue in sports. My dad had wrestled in high school, so I started wrestling. And I also did a lot of backpacking at the time. I ended up being an Eagle Scout, so I had several thousand miles of hiking behind me, which apparently gave me some speed and endurance, which turned into varsity letters in cross country and track and field. I also started playing tennis, so I got out of the 10 letters, it was more or less equally split between those four sports. Actually got banned by the local high school, or the opposing high school coach. He said, well, it's not legal for a guy to participate in two sports in the same season. So he made a complaint, and they had to kick me off one of the teams that year, but I still got a varsity letter because I'd already performed there. But yeah, individual sports, endurance sports were kind of a welcome departure for me, kind of getting into your own self as you're training and competing.
Well, I would definitely track down that coach that made the complaint and put a little hex on him. But I'm definitely very envious and somewhat jealous of your achievement in the Boy Scouts of the highest rank in existence. I was a scout for many, many years, along with my brother, who's an Eagle Scout, and my son, who is an Eagle Scout. I was a scout leader for probably 6 years, but I myself was one merit badge short of being an Eagle. I was a terrible swimmer, and life saving just wasn't in my tool bag. I mean, I barely got through swimming, but that was one badge that held me back, and I'm envious but proud. And achieving an Eagle Scout's got to have some great honors over the years. So, congrats on that.
Thank you.
Tell us about your hobbies. I hear that you're very much into watchmaking, which is a pretty amazing skill set.
Yeah, so in my very early career, in fact, my first full-time job, I was an engraver. I operated an engraving machine to make nameplates for trophies and so forth. And then I started engraving jewelry, not hand engraving. I'm not all that artistically skilled, but using machinery, I was able to learn jewelry engraving. And then I became a tool and die maker. I did an apprenticeship, and eventually became the highest qualified, or achieving the highest qualification of experimental machinist, which meant I could basically operate any machine and produce any manufactured object. And so that skill and interest has just stayed with me through all these years. And I also have kind of an affinity for kind of your steampunk things. You see my ancient laboratory background here, and pocket watches are a thing that are just interesting to me. So I started acquiring a bunch of pocket watches and figuring out how to fix them, and then acquiring tools and so forth, because the parts aren't really available. So I'm able to make parts to bring them back to new condition. And hopefully in my retirement, I'll be able to do that a lot more often.
I know you will, and I know you're looking forward to the point of retiring from your job. And what is it that you do in real life as far as your job?
So my job is really hard to understand, even for the folks that I work with. So I work for one of the large defense contractors, and I am a systems engineer, which is a very specific type of engineering that develops how systems operate and defines their requirements. But what I do specifically in that field is I create models of processes that simulate how the company or a program functions. And it's a fairly new subject that the government and industry is interested in. It's creating a full digital representation of how your business works. And when we talk about models, I'm going to quickly lose people here, but when you talk about models, everyone's familiar with 3D models. When you build a rocket ship, you build a 3D model of the rocket ship. Well, I build abstract models of everything it takes to support the rocket ship. So if I go any further, your eyes are going to glaze over and you may pass out from indifference.
Wow, that's and based upon our current work environment, are you going to the office or are you working from home these days?
I've been a virtual worker ever since we moved to Texas about 12 years ago. So for a long time, I was traveling a lot. Virtually every other week, I would travel to an office where I was physically present, and some of that had to do with security classifications. But for the last nearly 3 years, I haven't left my house. So,
oh my God! So you got this this bubble that surrounds your house as an ecosystem that you just don't leave that bubble, and that's pretty interesting because it's pre-COVID. So that
correct.
you were one step ahead of the world with working at home years before we were forced to.
Correct. And basically, COVID gave me recognition that that's a legitimate job role is remote worker. So it basically, my company is very conservative and they didn't really support remote workers. And when I became a remote worker, I basically told them, I'm moving to Texas. You can fire me if you want. And they decided not to fire me. So I've been doing that ever since. But now remote worker is an actual classification at my company. They've got remote workers, virtual workers, hybrid workers. So all of that has become legitimized more and more.
I think that businesses are beginning to understand and realize that if you do work remote from home, for example, that you're probably putting more dedicated time than if you were in an office.
Sure.
But it requires a tremendous amount of control on one's part. So pretty amazing. So all right, let's do a recap. You're a watchmaker, you're a scientist, you're a machinist. You've got great hobbies from outdoors to hiking, and then you've actually jumped into this crypto world. Tell us a little bit about your introduction to the crypto world.
Well, my introduction came decades ago. I've got a book behind me. I think it was written in 1993 by Donald Tapscott. In fact, let me look at the title real fast. It's called The Digital Economy. So at the time, I was a director of information technology at an aerospace company. I've been interested in computers and so forth since I was a teenager. In 1978, I think I got my first computer, and I've been developing different computing skills, programming, and so forth during that time. And I've seen this horizon of what they were calling the digital economy then, and was kind of paying attention when Bitcoin came out. At one point, I set up a Bitcoin mining rig quite a few years ago, but because of the complexity of the mining algorithm, I was making, let's say, 1 Bitcoin a month, and at the time, let's say it was worth $100, and I'm like, this is stupid. $100 a month, I'm not going to waste my time on this. And so quite a bit of time passed to raising children and being occupied with work and so forth. And when my youngest daughter left for college, I ended up going to a dinner party with our investment advisor and accountant, and I met Scott McHenry there. So he's a local Central Texas resident, and he started talking a little bit about his involvement with crypto. And I said, I basically insisted that he tell me everything that he was doing, and insisted that I participate in those projects. So that was October of 2020, and I've gotten fairly involved with what is now the Social Bees University since then.
Well, two very important questions come to mind. One, do you still own that Bitcoins that you were earning one a month? And number two, you can answer them together. What was your first computer?
My own first computer was a Commodore 64. My dad bought one of the first IBM PCs, and I don't remember which one came first. I just remember that one of the two entered the house in 1978.
Well, I would have guessed between either the Commodore 64 or the Atari, which was my direction years and years ago. I think I still have that in my son's warehouse, so I may pull it out when I get a chance and just throw off the dust and see if it still works.
Well, kind of the good news on all those computing platforms is you can get emulators. You can basically emulate every computer that's existed on your PC now. And because your PC is so powerful and folks are interested in this, they've built emulators for virtually everything. And so you can run all of that software on every computer you've ever owned right there on your current PC.
Well, the problem is I probably have hundreds of floppy disks that I have a challenge running those.
All right. Well, I've got to tell you the story at NFT Connect Austin. One of the ladies was talking about how ancient she was in the computing world. And I said, well, unless you can talk to me about hooking up a cassette tape recorder to your computer to store your files, you aren't that old.
Well, I do have the cassette also that went with the Atari.
Right. And yeah, that's pre-floppy drive. Yeah.
Pretty amazing. I'd like now for you to tell us a little bit about the projects that you've actually worked on and created for the Social Bees University community. And was the first project that you completed the rarity checker? Was that one of the first, or what does that come into the stream?
That was the first project that I finished. And so at the time we had started off developing a website and a centralized database and so forth for the WeGo tools. That kind of circumstances went in a different direction, and some of that kind of went by the wayside. But the rarity tool was the first thing I completed, and we set it out on the Twitter space. And Twitter is kind of the wild west, and it's a very closely held company from the perspective of they decide if you are violating their communication policies or not, and there's very little recourse if they think you are. And so our Twitter rarity tool ended up getting more or less banned by the Twitter folks a couple of times with a very vague message that your tool violates the policies of the Twitter company, and numerous emails back and forth resulted in nothing but frustration and no real understanding of why they were banning our tool. And that I think I've learned a little bit since then, but we converted the tool from Twitter, or actually I converted the tool from Twitter to Discord, and now that rarity checker resides in the Web3 Global Discord, and you can check rarity on the Social Bees, the Mofo Goats, and the Waifu Girls. We also have the ability to check rarity on other projects, but they're not hooked up at the moment.
So, in other words, if we have a project that wants to join, we'll say, our Discord platform, whether it be for community management or otherwise, what is the work required to bring in their NFTs? Is it, I mean, the platform's structured, so it's a matter of scraping data and just putting that into the set that already exists?
Correct. And it's not very much work at all. Basically, I would modify the code and add their contract address and let the thing run for whatever it takes, 20 minutes to an hour. And then there would be a set of rankings available.
Beautiful. Oh my God, I see that as an extremely valuable tool because I do know that in order to be on these ranking platforms, these companies charge, a substantial amount,
Right,
whether
right,
it's
right.
1 to 5 ETH, just to get yourself the ability to check on their rarity checkers. So I think we need to keep that in mind, that that's another asset that, is valuable from a standpoint of the DAO, being able to offer that to other projects out there.
Yeah, and I'll just say one thing about those proprietary ranking tools. They are proprietary. They will not give you the exact formulas that they use to calculate their ranking. And because they have paying customers, they are willing to modify the rankings based on whatever the customer decides he wants to his ranking to come out. And so what we did is we made a concerted effort to make our rankings unbiased. There's only one ranking algorithm. It applies to every collection. And I've gone on and talked about exactly how we rank it and how I audited it and verified it, and we'll give the calculations to anybody in addition to offering the service for free. So
Wow.
so ours is very open and unbiased, and I think that's an illusion that folks have when they check rarity, that there is one scientifically calculated rarity for things, and there's not. There's just a bunch of I was going to use the term half-assed, but anybody can create a ranking system and sign it off as this is the rarity, and there is no scientific thing such as rarity the way it's used
Wow.
in NFTs.
So basically, most of the platforms out there are skewed in one way or another to the
Correct.
benefit of the project owner.
Correct.
Amazing. Like to talk a little bit about, which I may not be using the term correctly, your scraping abilities. And I think maybe you should define what that is, so if people don't understand that, because I know that you're pretty involved in bringing data to the forefront of a lot of different things. So can you talk a little bit about your scraping skills?
So one of the things that I'm kind of a specialist in the computing field is I'm a data scientist. I'm a data analyst. I'm a database developer. I've done a lot of analytical things related to large amounts of data. And in the crypto world, one of the things that I find interesting is the transparency. And so for all of the transactional data and information related to crypto assets, it's available to anyone that has the skills to go explore it. And so there's numerous sources of information depending on what exactly you're interested in. In terms of rarity, there's a set of properties for each NFT, and they have to be stored in a database, and that database is publicly available through OpenSea and other sources. So I just write algorithms that go and query those databases to get the information. And we also have our sales bots. We've got the secondary sales Twitter bot and the Bees auction Twitter bot that use different sources of information. For the auction bot, our developers that built the auction platform, they wrote a custom, we call it an API endpoint. It's an application programming interface endpoint that I query on a regular basis, and it gives the information as to what the prices and winners of the auction were. And for the secondary sales, I'm querying OpenSea databases basically to get the sales information.
Oh, amazing. Well, I got a question. With your scientific skill set and your machinist, can you build me a small Tesla?
Yes, I can.
I'm looking. I mean, I'm intrigued with the ozone smell and the lightning effect. And
I have an instrument. It's called a what is it called? Now I can't remember the exact name, but it's kind of the same idea. It is two counter-rotating glass discs with a series of electrodes. And so you crank the handle and the two discs spin in opposition, which creates static electricity. And then you can discharge it if you put your finger, if you dare, or a piece of metal next to its electrodes, you can create quite large sparks. And yeah, I like that ozone smell, but I did learn an important lesson to make sure to stand on the front side of the machine and only reach toward it with the electrode, and not stand on the back and reach around it. When I reached around it, I was now inside this electric field, and I got quite the eye-opening shock from that.
wow, it brings back an old memory. My dad was a magician, and he used to have this old doctor's bag with two handles, and inside the handle there were two metal strips, and inside that, from an old automobile, he had this sparking machine, which I don't think it was a Tesla design.
It's a coil, is what it's called.
Coil. So and there was a trip switch on the bottom. So if you picked the bag up, the spark went off, and you couldn't even throw it.
Right. Yeah. So I just remembered the name of the machine I was talking about. It's called a Wimshurst machine. So Wimshurst was the gentleman that developed it in the 1800s. And
well, I know we've gone on a little tangent with this.
Yeah, a little bit. I told you.
What the heck is a Tesla?
Right.
But going on to future projects, do you see any that you have in mind that you'd like to bring little nuggets, as we call them in our space?
Yeah, so I'm working on one thing. I've been working on it for 8 or 10 months. I'm not exactly sure, with another group of folks where I'm using artificial intelligence algorithms to make forecasts of crypto prices. So I've had to learn these machine learning algorithms and how to apply it to crypto, and that's currently a slow-paced project that who knows if it will come to fruition or not. But I have developed that capabilities for AI and machine learning programming that I think has applications for different crypto projects. I'm also trying to start up my own individual project related to a game that I had but I had developed some years ago. It's a 3D game, and I think that it could become an NFT project. So I've got that running around in the back of my mind.
Wow. Keep us close to the cuff on that, because you do know that you've got a huge community behind you that is very willing to support, any of our NFT holders, our DAO members projects. So that sounds very, very exciting. You sort of remind me of somebody that would like to go back to the future. I mean, you've seen that movie. I love it time and again. Is that one of your favorites?
I'm more into horrific scientific stories than casual hilarious ones. But yeah, that is an interesting movie.
Well, I heard that you actually tried out for that role years ago. And I've got a little proof here, so sit back and let's see if we can prove that.
All right. Yes, the hoverboard. That's definitely.
There you go. That's you. And the second movie that I think you're interested. You follow Star Trek at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like one of these things here.
Yeah,
half a dozen
live long and prosper.
Right, and I think you also tried out for Spock. Let's see if we can bring that one on.
The crew will not understand it. It's not logical that you are Serac. Live long and prosper.
Yes. There you go. two movies you tried out for. So I'm very, very impressed. We got a lot of comments coming through here. Will T says lots of knowledge and education bottled up in these handsome fellows. And we've got here Melanie OMG laughing about those videos that I created.
Yep.
Well, I don't want to keep everybody here too much longer. Love to wrap this up. If you have any, well, let me ask you a question. Where do you think Web3 is going? I mean, that's a question that everybody, has in their mind. How long is it going to take us to get to the adoption of crypto? And any forecasts or any thoughts on Web3 and alike?
I think it has a definite, legitimate future. I think that I haven't really made an effort to determine what the time horizon is. When I started, I was thinking in a 2 to 5 year time frame. So I'm coming up to the end of the second year, and I think it's clear adoption clearly hasn't begun yet. But I think that the frustration with the economy and so forth, if we can ever clear all these damn scandals and hacks and things that we're experiencing in this space, that I think that that may lead to a fairly rapid period of adoption. I believe it will happen. I'm holding my tokens and things for the long term in anticipation of that. And like I said, 5 years was the time frame I was thinking of at the time, and that seems still possible.
Well, I got to believe your timeline because I'm sure that you've built some device throwing in all of the numbers that you've got that timeline down a lot closer than you're letting us know. So your skill set, I know you can open up your pad on page 42 and you've got a date. So we'll try to get that out of you next time.
All right.
But really appreciate you coming here today. Any last words you'd like to leave our audience?
So I've stuck with what is now the Social Bees because I have a great respect for the founders and developers that have built the infrastructure of our project. I think that they have very high level of skill, and they're looking out for our best interests, and they're reacting to things as they develop. And so I'm pretty happy with our project as a whole, and I intend to be here for a long time, all the way through that adoption phase. How's that?
That is excellent. And if there are people watching this live stream or on the replay that have any questions about who we are, which is Social Bees University, you certainly can go to socialbees.io. We do have a number of bees available on OpenSea. Make sure you go to the account that has the green check mark. And owning a bee will enable you not just to own the bee, but there are a great number of assets that are backed behind that, including token distribution and the ability to get into a group from a private standpoint and learn from the inside out. So, Dr. T, I want to thank you for allowing us to probe your brain, to have you as our special guest. And I do love the outfit that you wore, NFT Connect in Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas. And you looked marvelous that entire day. And I don't know how you stayed in that hot outfit, but as appropriate as it was, being a watchmaker, you were actually the timekeeper.
Yep.
For the Make Your Pitch night. Very appropriate. But thank you again for showing up. And let's wrap this up. And guys, do enjoy the rest of the week. And thank you all for appearing on or watching the Swarm Unplugged.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Swarm Unplugged podcast. Be sure to hit the follow button and leave us a glowing comment. Gravitate yourself to be on the podcast so you are the next one to introduce themselves to the Bees social community. See you on the next episode.